Good morning, NFA. Today is Friday, January 10th, 2020. Today is a B-Day.
Yo, bro, bro, watch out.
No,
I don't care. I don't care.
Yo, Jason, what's up, bro? What happened to your hand?
What's up, man? You see, so someone pushed into me, and it got me so mad that I punched the locker.
Stupid for that, my guy.
But
Look what you did, bro. Why you don't punch lockers, bro? Alright, I'll see you. What's it called? About Anthony Davis declining his contract extension and the Lakers.
Yo, that is crazy. Yo,
My
man.
bad.
Bro, come on.
My bad.
Come on, man. Ah!
Remember last time you punched something? You better not punch something this time, bro.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Bro, just don't do that again, alright?
Seniors, Life Touch will be here January 13th, 14th, and 15th for senior portraits. This will be your last chance to have a portrait taken. Your picture will not be in the yearbook if you do not have your portrait taken. For additional information, please go to Mr. Schuss's office.
Yo, why you littering? Because I want to. Yo, if you're gonna litter again, I'm gonna tell the principal. Man, I don't care. Yo, why you littering again? Because I don't care. No, I'm gonna tell the principal. Wait, no, I won't litter again. Remember, NFA, don't litter.
Anyone interested in scheduling an instant admission appointment, please stop by the guidance office. Their sign-up sheets are now available.
SUNY Orange Instant Admission, Thursday, March 12th, 2020 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Sunny instant admission Thursday, May 2020 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
What was that for?
I didn't do anything. I was just walking. You were running in the hall.
You were in my way before me to get to class.
Either way, you shouldn't be running in the hall. Just for the next time, don't be running in the hall.
Sorry, hopefully you're not hurt. I'm gonna take you to the nurse.
Okay.
Running in the hallways.
Attention seniors, the guidance department will be continuing to host future Fridays from 2nd period to 6th period in the Career Center. Stop by during a study hall or your lunch period to work on college applications, scholarships, and financial aid. The common application, Naviance, or letters of recommendation.
All students need to enter to the metal detectors, no exceptions. This includes children of faculty and staff who are students at NFA.
For late bus information, please send your grade administrator.
Students should check their bus assignments during your scheduled cafeteria periods. Copies of bus lists have been given to security, administrators, and teachers. Securities will have hard copies in each cafeteria, the security office, as well as the upper and lower lobby. Each administrator has a digital copy.
Hi, my name is Tim Toomey.
Frank, where are you coming from tonight?
From a bar.
Really? How much alcohol have you had tonight?
Just a little sip.
Sip?
Yeah.
You never finished one complete drink?
No.
I teach criminal justice and emergency management here at NFA North.
It's 9 o'clock now. What time did you start drinking?
About 7.
Okay, so for 2 hours you only had a sip?
Yeah.
And I was a police officer before I started this job for about 30 years. A field sobriety test, and there are several, are part of a battery of tests that an officer would give a driver to help determine if there's probable cause that they're driving while intoxicated. If those tests are not completed successfully, they indicate the person isn't sober. They would then be taken into custody, brought back to the police department, and asked if they would submit to a chemical test. If you're intoxicated, your coordination is going to be diminished. So the field sobriety tests are designed to show if you actually are intoxicated. So there's several that you would do. One of the ones that you probably remember from seeing TV or you've heard of before is the nose touch. It involves depth perception, in your mind placing where the tip of your nose would be, your head would be back, your eyes would be closed, you extend your arms out with both fingers simultaneously, you bring to the tip of your nose. If you're intoxicated, your perception is going to be off, your coordination is going to be off. So it kind of comes out like this, or any comical way. And there's several tests. What's important to know is some people do have disabilities. So we would ask them, do you have any disabilities? Is there anything that you can or can't do? Do you have any recent injuries? Do you have any mobility issues or restrictions or any handicaps? So we would never ask somebody to do a test that they couldn't physically do even if they were sober. And once again, these tests don't determine if you're drunk. They only contribute to the probable cause to bring you to the point of taking the definitive test, the breathalyzer, or a blood test.
Thank you. All right, our next test we're going to do is a simple sobriety test, which is a toe-to-toe walk. I'm going to step up here to get out of Frank's way. And Frank, I always ask questions like this. Do you have any disabilities in walking, any problems with your knees or hips or back that I need to know about? No. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is walk in a straight line, imaginary straight line, until the blue tile ends, just before it ends, and I want you to turn and stop. Please walk an imaginary straight line. When you walk it, I want you to walk it toe to toe. In other words, if you look down at my feet, I'm going to put my foot in front of the toe, step, front, step, step. If you want to put your hands out at your sides or slightly out for balance, that's fine. But I want you to try to keep a straight line when you walk like that. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Do you understand the test? Yes. Do you have any questions? No. And again, no disabilities that I need to know about? No. Okay. Go ahead when you're ready, Frank. Toe to toe. Begin.
The other test that you see a lot is the eye nystagmus. That's something that you actually have to get different training on. And you basically learn how to look at a person's pupil, which if they're intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, it changes the way their pupil dilates. So what you want to do is you put an object in front of them and you have them follow it with their eyes only, not their heads.
So to me, and I'm going to be demonstrating an eye nystagmus test with Frank. Frank's going to be my possibly intoxicated driver, and I am going to do the test that an officer would do. Frank, can you face me, please? Can you relax, put your hands at your side? I want you to follow my pencil using your eyes without moving your head. Let me re-explain that. I want you to keep your head still, follow the pencil with your eyes. Are we ready? I'm going to start over here. I'm going to move the pencil slowly, 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 slowly. Now we're going to go back. Very good. I'm watching, while he's doing that, I am watching his eye pupils for their reaction. We can tell if someone's intoxicated by the dilation of their pupils, by looking into your eyes. That's the center ring within your eye. A person that would be intoxicated, the first problem that we have is they always move their head. And they always do that. We have to do the test over and over again. If we do get them to hold their head still, we can look into their pupils and see that they're intoxicated. You
There are walking a straight line, walking toe to toe, turning and coming back, reciting parts of the alphabet, and you would never have to ask, you would never be asked to recite it backwards. So if the person failed the sobriety test, first of all, if they get pulled over, you're pulling them over for a reason. We don't just pull people over and ask them to step out of the car and do a sobriety test. It's a building of what's called probable cause, where you're building your level of suspicion to the point where you have enough to then take the person in custody.
Yeah, let's go. Oh yeah.
Ooh, let's go.
Just come in. I'll be right back. I have to mop my ceiling.
Those are some ugly roses you have there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, sit down.
I was just leaving.
No, you're gonna want to hear this. Trust me, sit down.
Do you know why you're here? I was just stopping in to say hi.
So you're paying visit to a 13-year-old's house?
Well, I mean, I was just checking on. She's home alone. I was just checking on her, see if she's okay. Like,
Do you know who I am?
I have no idea.
Well, my name is Chris Blackson. This is David.
They're here. What's that supposed to be?
No.
Okay, so now that you've got your footage imported into Adobe Premiere, what we're going to do is we are going to make that chair disappear. So first, what I'm going to need you all to do is to drag your clip into the timeline. Excuse me, can you take those off, please? I'm trying to teach, and you know you're not supposed to be wearing them in class.
Sorry.
Stay back. No.
Hello, my name is Mr. Sohan. I teach a course in biology. It's called The Human Body. And today we're going to look at the eyeball. And we're going to talk about the structure of the eyeball, the anatomy of the eyeball. And in addition to that, we're going to perform some tests to determine the acuity of vision. We can also do some tests to test for depth perception, the eyeball's role in depth perception. We're going to do something that will allow us to demonstrate the fact that behind our eyes we have what's called a blind spot. And then lastly, we're going to do what's called a fusion test. Okay, so when it comes to vision and how we see things, it's kind of like an interaction between things inside the eye called receptors and how they communicate with the brain. Okay, so the receptors that are inside the eye are in this orange layer here, and these are called photoreceptors. We have two types. We have rods, which are for like very dim light, seeing in the dim light, which are for black and white vision, and then we have cones, which give us our color vision. But anyway, all these different receptors line the orange layer called the retina, and then they all converge in the back of the eye at this spot right here, which is called the optic disc. And if you look at the back of the eye, you can see how the optic disc comes out the back of the eye. So because of we need space for the nerves to come out of the eye, we can't have any receptor cells in those spots. So what happens is each eye has a blind spot because we can't put receptor cells that are sensitive to the sun or to light in that spot. So each eye has a blind spot. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to demonstrate your blind spot. All right, so an easy way to show your blind spot or to find your blind spot is to use this simple test. What you're going to do is you're going to cover one eye and you're going to put your right thumb over the X. Do not look at the dot, just look at the X. And when you bring the paper in, you'll see that that dot will disappear, but you can only see the dot in your peripheral vision. Don't look directly at it. As you bring it in slowly, the dot will disappear, and then as you bring it in further, it'll reappear. So let me know. That comes over. See it?
Yeah, now it's gone.
Now it's gone. Now it's back. She'll show me exactly. Do it again.
Okay.
A little slower. When does it go away?
Right now.
Okay, so now it's gone. Keep going.
Right now.
Back. Okay, so the reason why it disappears is because that light that is reflecting off that dot is being focused on that area behind the eye that doesn't have any rods and cones where the optic nerve is exiting. So that's the blind spot. Okay, so with humans, obviously we don't have one eye, we have two eyes. And we have binocular vision, so both eyes are always out in front, and both eyes are always receiving information. Now, if I'm looking at something to the left or right, both eyes can pick it up, but they're going to be receiving it at different angles, right? So when the information comes back into the brain to be processed, we have images that are at different angles, and that information is going to be fused, right, in what's called the optic chiasma, which is kind of in the middle of the brain, and then it'll go to the back of the brain at the occipital lobes where it's processed. But because we have information coming from two eyes at two different angles, it gives us what's called depth perception. It allows us to see in 3 dimensions. Okay, so our depth perception comes from the fact that we are using two eyes. So when we lose vision in one eye, it affects our depth perception, right? So let's demonstrate that. So a very simple test that demonstrates depth perception is this test that we can use 2 very small graduated cylinders and a pen. When I have both eyes open, my depth perception is pretty high. So I have good depth perception. So I should be able to take my pen and insert it into the graduated cylinders pretty easily, like so. Oh, I missed that one time. So I was 4 for 5. Now, if I was to cover one eye and do it, I would lose depth perception, and my depth perception wouldn't be as good. And then if I was to do the same test again, I might find it to be a little bit more difficult. So if I cover one eye and do it, 1, 2, I'm missing 3. Oh boy, that was bad. 4, I got 1. 5, I got 2. Okay, so I went from 4 to 5 with both eyes to 2 to 5 with only one eye. when we have both eyes looking at objects, the images in the brain become fused or they become blended. Sometimes we can interrupt this by isolating one eye, by surrounding it with a tube. Now it becomes more difficult for this information in the brain to blend or to fuse. And the brain will have a difficult time processing this information. We're going to demonstrate this by doing the test called hole in the hand. This test is pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to take this tube and you're going to put it over your eye, and you're going to keep both eyes open. You have to focus on something. We're going to focus on the wall. And when you're looking at it with both eyes, what happens is one eye is being isolated, so the brain is getting the message, but it's not so clear. So what happens is when you look at the image, keeping both eyes open, put your hand up against this tube, and you tell me what happens. It looks like it's going right through the middle of your hand, like that. So yeah, that's because normally when we're looking at things with two eyes, things get picked up by both eyes and they get blended nicely. But when we isolate one eye, the brain has a hard time processing. So this is what's called the Snellen eye chart, and this measures visual acuity. You may be seeing one of these at motor vehicle department when you have applied to get your driver's license. They'll make you read from these lines. Now, normal vision, I don't know, maybe you've heard is 20/20 vision, right? So, well, what does that mean? Well, this line right here says 20/20 next to it. That means if you stand 20 feet away from here, you should be able to read this line. And that's what normal vision is. A person with normal vision should be able to read that line from 20 feet away. Now, if you could read the smaller one, this from 20 feet away, you would have what's called 20/15 vision. So you could read, what that means is, you could read from 20 feet away what a person with normal vision has to stand 15 feet away. Okay, so your vision is a little bit better. If you go above, the numbers change the opposite way. So if you could read this one from 20 feet away, your vision isn't quite as good. You would have 20/25 vision. So what that means is you could read from 20 feet what the normal eye can read from 25 feet. And you can see it gets much worse. If you could only read this one from 20 feet, then your vision would be described as being 2100. That would mean that you could read from 20 feet what a normal eye can read from 100 feet. Okay, so let's see where you are. So let's do a test that measures your visual acuity. Let's start at 20/20. Tell me if you can read this line right here. Okay, that's very good. So you have normal vision. Let's see if your vision is better than mine. Let's read line number 9. Very good. Try number 10.
F, D, P, L, T, C, E, O.
Correct.
Was that correct?
The last one.
F, E, E, O, L, C, F, T.
No, we had some errors there. So this is where you ended up. So this says 2013. So for you personally, you can see from 20 feet what the normal eye has to stand at 13 feet. So I get this question a lot. What is the purpose of this lesson? I remember being in school thinking that the same question to myself in math, looking at these complex math problems. What is the purpose of this? What am I going to use this? Well, believe it or not, in this class, this is called the human body, and we all have those. So it's important to know the parts of the body and how they work. So the anatomy and the physiology. And this is especially true for the eyes. Now, some of us are going to go into the medical field. Maybe after graduation, you're going to go into sports medicine. Maybe you're going to go into nursing, or maybe you're going to be a doctor or something like that. So having a basic understanding of the human anatomy and the physiology is very important in order to go on and do something like